afternoon to everybody. We want to thank Betty for sponsoring this Dvar Torah. It's Leilu Nishmat husband Shavar, a dear member, one of our Gabaim, Peter Zechet Tzedek V'Bracha, and he should have an Aliyah B'Gan Eden. We always remember Peter so fondly because he contributed so much as a mensch and also as being a gabbai to our shul. Betty continues in her own way as being very connected and leading the, so to speak, the Women's Guild. And so yes, we wish her long life and that Peter should have an aliyah. There were a lot of people, a lot of great Gedolei Yisrael who passed away in this last week, and I wasn't sure which one to speak about. For example, on Shabbat, there's it's going to be the Yortzeit of Rav Goren Zechet Tzedek V'Bracha, and I wasn't sure whether to speak about him or the one that I'm currently going to speak to about is Rabbi David Tzvi Hoffman. We sort of know and don't know about Rav Goren, so anyway, I decided to take a second route and to speak about Rabbi David Tzvi Hoffman. There's this one interesting story that Rav Goren always used to say about himself. We know that he was a person, besides a tremendous Gaon and Talmid Chacham, that he really made it his business, so to speak, to participate in the wars of Israel. So that goes back already to 1948. He had to, during that time, just like leading up to the war, so he was in a Emdav Shmirah, and the Haganah gave him, I think, like 3 bullets. That's what he said, something like that, not very much more. And they said, listen, there's only 3 bullets. We've got now, that's the ammunition we've got. If you aim and you don't hit your target, so we're going to sort of we're going to sue you, so to speak, for wasting ammunition. He made it his business to train, and he said that he always had all 3 of the bullets found their targets. After the 6-day war, he wanted to find a yeshiva on the Har HaBayit, but the Medina, including also the ministers of the Mizrahi at that time, sort of didn't allow him to do it, even though he really wanted to do that. Okay, so we want to speak about now Rav David Tzvi Hoffman. He one of the last great Rabbonim of Germany before the fall of Germany, German Jewry in the Second World War. As you can see, that he was passed away in 1921. So there were actually 3 great. There were more, but I'm speaking about the last period of German Jewry. There were 3 great Rabbonim. The one everyone knows of is Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, who passed away, born 1808 and passed away in 1888. The other one was Rav Hildesheimer, who was born in 1820 and passed away 1899. And he founded the famous rabbinical academy in Hildesheim. Since his passing of his death, there was another great rabbi called Rabbi Meir Lemon, and there was this Rav David Tzvi Hoffman, who was sort of took over from Rav Hildesheim. The common denominator between all these rabbonim were that their background basically was a background of sort of pure Torah. For example, Rabbi Hoffman, he was born sort of in Pressburg, and but they came to the conclusion, each one of these rabbanim, that the only way that they will be able to fight the reform, which absolutely wreaked havoc in Germany and in Hungary, was that they had to have some sort of modern education in order to fight the reform. We knew though, but the way that they fought reform, even though they all coupled their learning afterwards with secular learning, modern, or what we would call modern orthodoxy, but the way in which they fought was not very different. For example, Rav Shimshon or Raphael was a very, very dynamic and eloquent speaker. So the way he wanted to influence, I mean, he went to university, but his main way of influence was through his speeches and through his writings. He had a tremendous mastery of the language. But on the other hand, Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch felt that the only way that they can survive the onslaught of Reform Jewry was mamash to make a total break between the community and between what we would call like Chayei Jewry. And that's what he did. They met, he had the Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, who's associated with modern orthodoxy, but actually made a clean cut. And in that way, he was mamash like he established the Chayei community that had nothing to do with the reform. On the other hand, Rav Hildesheimer, he also saw the terrible situation of reform, and he also fought it tooth and nail. But he felt that the way to do it was to build up the community, that they should be leaders of modern orthodoxy who will be able to speak to the youth. And so he started off this Hildesheimer's academy, like rabbinical school, to train like Rabbonim who would be able to now speak the language, so to speak, because they went to university, they had this type of language, and in that way to interact with the youth. Rav David Tzvi Hoffman, who was born in 1843 and came from Pressburg, he had this cultural, he wanted to learn secular studies, he learned philosophy, he learned languages, history. He got degrees in, became a professor, and he went to Berlin. And what he did was he took over from Rav Hildesheimer when Rav Hildesheimer passed away in 1899. So that's when he took over the academy. And what's he known for? I mean, one of the two basic things that he was known for was, number one, that he decided to challenge the whole inyan of biblical criticism head on. Must remember that in other circles, let's say take the Lithuanian circles, they just said that biblical criticism it's absolute apikorsos, it's heresy, there's nothing to negotiate, there's nothing to speak about. We believe that what the Torah was given was directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu via Moshe Rabbeinu, so there's nothing not to speak about. And there were, in the times of Hoffman, German Jews were like privy to all the apikosot of the texts that they were on the Bible. They were mamash, like not just academic, but all the inyan of biblical criticism like had in its actually included like venomous attacks against the Bible and all mamash like pure anti-Semitism. But it wasn't just academic. It was academic the way in attacking the Jews was also to attack their Bible. And for example, the academic, the anti-Semite Wellhausen, who spoke about different that various sections of the Torah and the Tanakh were composed at different times. For example, all the inyan of the Korbanot in Vayikra, it actually was composed much later, at the time of Bayit Rishon, Bayit Sheni. So this is what he decided now, and they did it on the basis of difference in language, difference on style, etc., etc. And he decided to fight this very vicious attack on the Bible, but head on. In other words, what he did was he sort of proved by using their own system against themselves. So he used the ammunition against themselves. That's what he's known for. And he's also known for his tremendous halachic works called Melamed Lo. Those were a sponsor. And I'll just give you one example. I mean, he spoke a lot about the whole issue of an organ that the Reform always introduced. And could a shul have an organ, let's say, to play for weddings or not? And there's one very short tshuva at the beginning. I think it's number 15. He was asked whether can one smoke in shul. In the beginning, he speaks about when are you allowed to eat or drink in a shul. But one of the interesting things that he said was that, he says, the Christians, they don't allow smoking in their church. Therefore, if the Jews would allow smoking in their shuls, that's like nothing short of a chilul Hashem. So the Jews should always be, at least in certain ways, we should always be like more of an example, not less an example. How could it be that the non-Jewish world show a certain decorum and a certain honor to their places of worship? If we fall less than that standard, that's a chilul Hashem, so that actually a person shouldn't smoke like in a shul. Okay, so now to the Parsha Shavua. So first of all, I decided to compound one comment, a very short comment of Rav Gorian, one short comment of Tzvi Hoffman. They both deal with the fact that from a different angles on that at the end, towards the end of the Sedra, Abraham Avinu remarries, and he takes a woman who's called Torah. Now, there are different opinions who this Torah was. Was she a third wife? In other words, his first wife was Sarah, his second wife was Hagar, and his third wife is a woman called Torah. Or is she a second wife, just taken over again, and that is Hagar? But that's not what bothers them. What bothers them is that when he took this wife, and he had 6 children with this wife, this is nothing short of a miracle, because when did he take her? He must have been about 140 years old, more or less, because he was 10 years the senior of Sarah. Sarah, as we read in the beginning of the Parsha, died in 127. So let's say now, so he was 137. Let's say he waited a bit. He was about 140. He died in 175, so we're speaking about he took a woman. He had now children at the second, third marriage, 6 children, when he had only 35 years to go. So this is nothing short of a miracle. So how come the Torah just says it so casually and doesn't emphasize the miraculous nature of this marriage and the giving, the siring of the children? So they both attack this, or they confront this inyan, but in a different way. Rav Gorian, for example, he says that the emphasis is to tell us like this: that once when Yitzchak was born, Hashem made a miracle that Abraham's physical makeup changed. In other words, he gave him back his youth. It wasn't just that he gave him back his youth, or that miraculous, the seed that Abraham had was able to, even though he was old, was able to produce a Yitzhak. No, the miracle was that he went back, so to speak, in time. In other words, he became rejuvenated. So because he became rejuvenated at the time of Yitzchak's birth, so he continued now to be able to give birth to children, to sire children. And that's why this is just a continuation of he's been able to give birth to Yitzchak when he was like 100 years old. So that's the one approach. David Tzvi Hoffman's got a different approach completely. He is saying that what the Torah is trying to emphasize in this story is something that goes back not to the end of Abraham's life, but basically to the beginning of Abraham's life. when Abraham was just came to Eretz Israel, and he said to Hashem promised him a great reward. So Hashem said to Hashem said to Hashem, what you got to tell me, give me already. I'm already like very old. I'm not going to have any children. So Hashem said, listen, he said, I saw on my stars are astrological stars that I can't have children. So Hashem said, no, you can have children. And not only that, Hashem said, Hashem said, promised him that through him, he'll all the families of the land will be blessed through him. So Rav Hoffman says that is what the Torah is trying to emphasize. That what he did was that he produced different types of people. The different people and nations were blessed through him. He had number one, Yishmael. That was one group of people. Number two, he had Yitzchak. That was the Jewish people, and second group of people. Then towards the end of his life, in his own lifetime, he saw a fulfillment of Hashem's promise as far as this is concerned, and that he had from a woman called Keturah, he had another group of progeny. What he did was he had 6 children, etc., and that wider family, the Torah tells us that he sent eastwards, that they should settle other nations, and that's what the Torah is trying to say. So this is like two interesting chidushim of what these two great people said. Shabbat shalom lekula.